What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of How Y'all Healing, presented by Medicine4Melanin. And I am your host. Y'all know that already because y'all been here before. And if you haven't, welcome. I am your host, Spry Lee Scott, and I am excited, as always, I'm excited every week to be here with y'all and to be here with this guest, this amazing guest that's coming on, somebody that I've known for a while. But before we get to her, just want to take care of some of the, in-house stuff, some business. So if you are following us on YouTube or on Facebook, please like, share, and subscribe to this video, to this channel. Make sure y'all tell y'all friends. And again, like I said, if you like it, tell somebody. If you don't like it, tell somebody. Talk about us. Come on in the comments. Talk all the trash about us. It's all good. It's all love. And we accept both your praises and your criticism. Let us know what we're doing, what we can do better. And also let us know what you want to talk about. How Y'all Healing is a conversation series with healers and people who are Black and brown people who are working in the community to heal us and healing themselves in the process. So we want to make sure we get everybody in, and we want to get so many kinds of people in here to talk about their healings and hopefully to inspire y'all. So with no further ado, I want to bring on our guest, TaNesha Barnes. She is a global lifestyle entrepreneur. We're going to get into all of that. She's going to tell you about her title. And you know what? What's going on? All the way live from Morocco in the middle of the Sahara.
Yo. Only Spry could get me at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right. And I'm laughing, and I'm like, yo, this season, everybody, like all of my guests are out of the country. My first guest was in Bali, last week was in Israel, and now I got you in Morocco. So either I'm supposed to be doing an accident show, or I'm supposed to be moving.
So, well, you know what I think about that.
Well, so. that's a whole nother story. We ain't gonna talk about me getting out of the US of A just yet. But we'll talk about your opinion on that as well, because I know you are very vocal about Black people living in the States, should I say. So but let's just start off. Actually, you know what? Let's start off with Power Black. And I just want to say, because I was there in Spry, at the Spry Palace in the Sahara with you back in February.
I mean, doesn't it seem like a lifetime ago?
Yeah, it seemed like 5 years, but it was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And you brought this amazing group of people together, which again we will talk about as well. But one of the terms that was coined by Jamil, shout out to Jamil,
hey,
was this term Power Black. And you so eloquently were able to put words behind, or a meaning behind the actual words. So can we talk about what Power Black is as opposed to Black Power?
Yeah. You know, I love that. We were all playing around with this Power Black, like we had all our fly gear on and stuff. But I mean, in reality, when you guys left, I was able to really process what had happened. And, I was very purposeful in putting together a group of dynamic Black people, right? Everybody was a star, every single person.
Right.
And I think it's rare that creatives and healers and people of those sorts are together in a room that feeds them rather than feeding off of them. Right. And I think that energy and that synergy led to this idea of Power Black. But Power Black really exists as an entity in and of itself. The difference with Black Power is that it's a resistance to white supremacy, right? It exists because you are pushing back at something. Power Black just is because it is, because we fly like that. like there's no resistance in that. There's no space because there's peace. And that is really, to me, the key to what is next for Black people, right? What's next? What I'm interested in talking about and thinking about and building is a place where we're just sitting in our power. And we're not doing it in resistance to anything, but just because we exist like that.
And it's
So
so
Power Black,
interesting
yeah.
when you put the meaning behind Power Black, it resonated so deep with me because I think I was in a place of that struggle, with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and there was a time where I was the one out there on the front lines, like ready to fight, and just at every single protest, every single time something happened in our communities, I was there. But I know that with everything that was happening, I was in a different space, and it's not to say that I'm removed from anything that's going on, and or even not empathetic to what's happening. I know that I was in a different space of how do we fight this. And I'm also in a space now where I understand that when we focus on the negative, or we're fighting against the negative, we're still giving energy to that. And so now it's like, how do we go from fighting that to putting more energy into the positive? And that's why Power Black to me rings so true, because it's like, yeah, like I'm for Black Power, but at the same time, Power Black. I'm not here to fight other people and try to teach other people about me.
Mhm.
I'm here for us.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a situation where, my humanity isn't in question. And this idea of this struggle, of this push, and constantly being in a state of rage is really also a tool of white supremacy, right? It's a tool to rob you of the energy that you need to produce and manifest the things that you really are here to do. And, we're very much alike. From the time I was 12, I've been an activist. I've laid my body out in the street. And I remember the moment where I said, I'll never ever do this again. I'll never keep begging and screaming and yelling at a nation that I have accepted. I think that that's a part of healing, like you start to accept certain things. And I've really accepted the reality that the foundation of the United States is what it is. And it's so rooted deeply in the hatred of Blackness that this is just a state of being that I think the United States will have until it falls. And so, I mean, and that seems dramatic to people that want to believe in the shift and change. But, it always reminds me of like a Baldwin, when he talks about like, well, when? My mama's generation, my grandma's generation, my great great grandma's generation. How many generations of how long are we waiting for this particular change? And I think when I stopped resisting the acceptance of what it was, it helped me make stronger and better decisions for my spiritual space and for my physical body, where I wanted to be, where what fed me, so that I wasn't every day in a rage, and I'm able now to produce the work at the level that I want to produce it. And I think that that's been extremely important for me.
Right. So where did this this fight, I would say, in you come from?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I remember being 11, 12, like deeply, deeply affected by Black life. And I grew up privileged, like I had all the things. I had a DOS computer when I was 6. Yeah, like,
Whoa.
yeah, like floppy disk and everything. I wasn't in the struggle. But I think that you're born into a particular path in life, right? And it's just been in me. I was president of the NAACP at 12 years old till I was
Okay.
18, like, so there was just always this particular space of fight. But I'm really glad that it grew out of this. That was good for my political consciousness. I think that, over the time, and I learned, And then there was this shift where it no longer became political for me because I realized like this is a spiritual war. And in order for us to win this, it's not economic. And I'm the queen of entrepreneurship, but money is not gonna save us, you know. And it is literally a fight for our spirit and our soul. And when I realized that, I think I started to work different. And that's where we're at now.
And I think a lot
And
of people are coming to that realization collectively. There's an understanding that this is a spiritual warfare more than anything. Like we are fighting in understanding that not only are we fighting for our spirits and for our souls, but also there's a power in connecting to those who have gone before us. So understanding the connection with our ancestors and knowing that, like, yo, like this is spiritual warfare. We good. They coming through.
Mhm.
You know.
It's a remembering, like when we remember who we are. What white supremacy did is it went around the world robbing people of their deepest power, their deepest connections to themselves, their deepest ancestral knowledge, and that has been how it sustained itself. And I think the deeper that you go into your spiritual journey and your spiritual path and you start to connect back to that power, ooh, honey, they in trouble. Like
And
it's
speak,
just it's nothing like it.
Mhm. And speaking of
Yeah.
around the world, and you talk about how white supremacy went around the world and it infected it pretty much. So what's the difference between leaving the United States and going somewhere else? And like, are we running from what's happening here in the United States and finding it other places? Like, how is that different?
Well, so I'm glad you asked that because people ask that often, right? Like people love to say stuff like racism is everywhere, you know, and no, actually, it really isn't. And I know that that's difficult for people to understand, but racism actually isn't everywhere. That's a structural institution that prevents you from growing and doing the things in the world that you want to do, right? And I can honestly say that there are plenty of places where that doesn't exist. Now, there are other structures that exist, but racism, as it functions in the United States, isn't one. And I don't know if I've lost you or if you just put me on by myself. I don't know. Did I lose you, Spry? Oh, I didn't. Here he is. Okay. I was like, I don't know if I lost you or
Nah, I
um,
know this is crazy, but go ahead.
mhm. But when you think about the U.S., there is a deep energy, and I feel it now. Like when I started to really do my deep work from Bali, and Bali is a perfect example of this. I would come back and at the minute that I landed in New York, I would get off the plane and I would be in tears. I would be bawling. It was an energy. I was feeling so connected and so deep that I would feel all of this energy. And I think that what I've learned from traveling is that there are vortexes, spiritual vortexes throughout the world that call to you. Like I end up in a new country because that country calls to me. I was never interested in Asia, and then all of a sudden, you couldn't get me out of Southeast Asia, right?
Okay.
And they call to you at the times where, if you're listening, that you need the power that's in that particular portion of the world, and I think that it was really important. Um, it was really important to uh, for me to understand that different spaces held different energy for me. And the United States was really a lost energy. I had lost the space where I could really be my full self there. And I think for a lot of Black people, because they're in a constant rage, because they're always fighting against the machine, right? Like it's a lot to put that kind of energy into something. And I now, like being in away, I've been in Africa now for 6 months. I've really been out of the country since the beginning of COVID. So like since March of 2020. And I mean, simple things like my blood pressure had gotten to a point before COVID where it was like at 190, almost like it was like 100, and it was something crazy over, I don't know, some crazy number, right? And I remember I came back from Morocco. I had done all, like just really allowed myself to release and be in it and enjoy that quiet time that COVID gave us. And my blood pressure was 128 over 90.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, like there are all these things, and we talk about this. We know this. We know that there are health disparities because of racism. We know, but when you're constantly in that grind, you don't know really the effect that it has on you spiritually and physically. And so I definitely think that it is more than just getting out. So I think that there's two things. I think racism as a structural institution, the way that it happens in the United States, is not everywhere. And I think that's important for people to say. Anti-Blackness is everywhere, different things. But let me tell you, it's class is really what most structures are in the rest of the world. But I can be here in Morocco, and there may be some residual, ideas around sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa and all of these different conversations, but there is nothing and nobody stopping me from, as long as I got the money and the resources and the knowledge, to really push forward to do any of the projects that I want to do. And that isn't the same in the United States.
Right.
And then the other part of that is, when I talk about Bali, Bali is a place where they are constantly cleansing, right? Every day they're cleansing. Every day they're doing some type of spiritual practice that allows them to be light in spirit. And if you've ever really spent time in Bali and with Balinesians, they're such a happy people. And people like to say that all the time. They're just so happy. And it isn't, they ain't trying to sell you nothing. Like this isn't like a tourism thing. There's just a lightness of spirit. But I take that as every day they're doing an offering. Every day somebody is making these little, flowers. Every day they're burning this thing for, whatever cleansing that they want to do, right? Every day. And when I think about Black folks in America, you hold so much, all these microaggressions, all these things,
Right.
and there's rarely a place to let that go, right? There's rarely peace. So, like in the Sahara, I can go out into the desert and just be quiet. Hell, I can sit in Spy Palace and just be quiet, right? We don't have a lot of those spaces in the United States that allows you the space to cleanse. And I think staying in the rage every day it's really killing us, and it's really preventing us from being our grandest selves. And so when I talk about Black people leaving the US, it really is so that you can see the fullness of your humanity,
Right.
you
And I
know.
see so many different travelers going all over the country, and I would say there's been this big push of Black travelers in the last few years. And one of the main things that everyone has in common is like, yo, I was riding down the street and I saw a cop and didn't feel any kind of way. I didn't feel any kind of anxiety. And even with me, there are times where, especially in the moments where tensions are high, when there's a highly publicized um, killing by the police, and just driving and you see those sirens and your heart beats fast, and start sweating and you're stressing out, knowing you ain't doing nothing wrong, knowing ain't nothing in the car, but it's just that anxiety. And so now and so hearing a lot of Black travelers talk about their experiences like that, and they say, yeah,
Mhm.
like, yo, like, it's why I remember I heard a story recently about a girl who was traveling, and she was like, yeah, I was there, and she was in Brazil, I think, for a student exchange program. She said, yeah, I was there, and I got robbed twice, but I'm all good. And it wasn't. It's like, yo, it's things happen, but even with those things that's happening, I'm
It's
still
nothing.
not fearing
Mm.
my life the way I would fear here.
Yeah, there's no utopia. I think that one of the things that when I talk about Africa, right? Africa ain't easy. And whoever tells you it is lying to you, right? Like Africa's hard, but it's hard in a very, very, very different way. And I think that it's hard in a way that African Americans need to push at their own sense of privilege. What I see people struggle with the most on the continent is that they realize just how much white supremacy they have in them. They
Wow.
realize just how much they are just like their white counterparts, because there's this feeling of expectation that is strange to me, and entitlement. And it's a very American thing. And even though, as Black people, we live on the periphery of society, we're often attacked, we still live within this very privileged space of the United States. And, I'm always telling Black folks, like, there's no other Black people on this earth with as much freedom as we have, the mobility to move. That blue passport still, with all the Trump stuff and all the crazy stuff, still gets you everywhere you need to go. No one else on this earth, there's white folks all over Europe that don't have the freedom that Black people in America have to move. And I think when you realize, like, again, it's all about Power Black, right? Taking back the powers that you have, realizing the privileges and using them to your advantage so that you can be more free, so that you can help other people be more free. And using, privilege in a different way, recognizing it, but towards the goal of freedom.
Mm. So speaking of, you talked about working hard, and I want to go back a little bit because you created the Black Freedom Colony,
Mm,
and I know you were working on bringing people out to Morocco at one point, and then boom, COVID happened, and it
mhm,
kind of like put your plans on pause. and
mhm.
and then you went down to Tulum and started the Black Freedom Colony. So first, tell us about what is the Black Freedom Colony.
So the Black Freedom Colony, as I define it, are Black people that are interested in expatriating out of the United States to live in community together, right? In spaces that affirm them, in spaces that are safe for them, in spaces that give them a greater sense of security and freedom. And when I went to Morocco, I was really realizing that COVID was not going to be a good place. America was not going to be a good place to be during COVID. I was in Africa when it first started, so that was way back in January. I saw what they were doing in Rwanda. Like, there were hand washing stations. Africa was responding to this way before the U.S. And so when I came back, and I was like, oh, these fools don't got this together. Y'all about to die. I'm getting about this piece, and me and my baby are about to go. And what was like, we going to the Sahara. I had a gig, to go to the Sahara. I'm like, we're gonna go 350 people in a landmass the size of the Sahara, right? And so I didn't actually go initially to Morocco to start a colony. It came out of it because during COVID, the uprisings happened. And here I was in all of this creativity, redecorating this palace in this space of peace, really connecting with my child and realizing, like, my people are falling again, like they're falling apart again, they're being, and it was just so interesting to watch. And I've watched it from afar often. I left after Trayvon Martin. So the US, I had enough after that. So it's been a
Okay.
long time. And I went to the Caribbean. But you know, watching it this time during COVID, during a global pandemic, it was mind-boggling to me. And so the idea of like getting people to get out was really strong. And and when I got back, so my goal was, I talked to Mohammed about this idea that I had to create this space for people.
And Muhammad
And
is your
Mohammed is my partner
at
in at
Spy
Spy
Palace.
Palace.
Right.
And and he was like, all right, like, yeah, they need to go. You know, everybody watches this from afar, like, yeah, this is what? Like, it's crazy town, right? And so when I got back, I went home to pack, and the borders were closed still. And we had an expectation that the borders would have been open. And then Trump mania really started to happen. You know, I was selling stuff, and it really was sparked by this white man that came to my tag sale. And it was interesting because I forget I created a bubble in my town, right?
And this
I'm
is
in this very
back in
this is
Connecticut.
in Connecticut.
Okay.
I'm back from Morocco. I'm in Connecticut, packing up my house, selling stuff, getting ready to make this move to the Sahara. And I have this tag sale, and I remember that I had created this bubble around myself in this very provincial white town. And I did this big tag sale. You know, my stuff was fly. I had it looking like Home Goods out there. And we have people that really do tag sales. And do you know these folks did not come to my home? They went across the street. They went down because I had told the whole neighborhood, like, hey, I'm gonna do a tag sale. We should all do it as a neighborhood. I put the flyers out. And I was like, wow. Like it was so blatant and interesting to me. And I it reminded me how I had built this space of, because my studio was at my home. And so I had all these beautiful Black people in and out of my space. And it made me believe that I kind of lived in this, I live in a cul-de-sac. I created this world. And being in community space, which I hadn't been in a long time, really reminded me where I was. But this particular man was like, after he had talked to me about some other crazy stuff, asked me if I had any guns. And I was like, well, no. I mean, you looking for some guns? You collect guns? He's like, I do. I said, oh, you know, are they antiques? He said, I don't collect guns that don't work. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, how many guns you have? I got 60 guns. The revolution is coming in October. And when you think about it, you know, you think about this big thing that they pushed on the White House or whatever. So he knew, like, he was a part of whatever this conversation was that was happening in a crazy white America. You know, he knew that this was
Right.
coming, but it was the threat because um, I realized, like, oh, you were threatening me. And when I talked to my the guy that you know, I started going to the gun range after that.
Right.
He was like, anybody in Connecticut knows that you can't buy a gun from another person. So if anyone that's going to ask you that actually owns guns, they're making a statement. And when I realized that, I registered 50 because I knew I was leaving. I made a decision that day. I'm out of here with my kid. Like, this little few weeks of being in the US was enough for me. And and I registered 50 people because I knew some people aren't gonna leave, you know, like some people are tethered to the United States for a variety of different reasons. And but if you were gonna stay, then my suggestion is that you be strapped, right? And I think that was perfectly legitimate at that particular time in what was going on in the US. And I was like, I'm gonna go to Mexico, and I'm sure some folks want to go with me, so I'm going to announce it. I'm always doing these trips. So I knew that there was going to be a few families that maybe wanted to follow me in Solana. 98 people did a temporary migration and expatriation to Mexico with me. And what started as like a little hotel that I had found that had like 7 bedrooms turned into a full apartment complex that we took over. And with our children and each other, we worked through 3 hurricanes to try to build community. And I really started to really consider what community was. And for the first time, people forgot that they could trust each other. that they could
Yeah.
share eggs with each other. I mean, it was hard. I
Bars of
had a lot of
sugar.
yeah, like it was beautiful. This idea, this relaxing and being in community, being in communion,
Mm,
doing stuff together, watching each other's kids, all of the things that we need to recover that was always natural to us as Black people, right? Like we have lost that so deeply that it was so kind of overwhelming in this community of like Mexico, all these Black folks that
right.
we could recover this, right?
But
But
I think it's
simultaneously,
also a opportunity to kind of, like you said, it reminds us. But sometimes we get so stuck in our lives and what's going on that we forget. So even with COVID, when people were able to work from home now, and then being able to work from home, and then taking a break and going outside, and they're like, oh shoot, like I can walk down my block, or I can have
mhm.
lunch with my kids. It was a time where we were reminded of some of the things that are important to us, and not and whether it's something that you experience firsthand or if it's something that's in your DNA. It just felt
Mhm.
good and it felt like home. And I think that opening this up, it gave people an opportunity to say, yo, like I could actually do this, and it
Yeah, and
works.
Mexico is interesting. You know, I'm a Texan, and we've always had freedom colonies in Texas. So, this is something that's probably in back somewhere. And
I never knew that.
the yeah. And Mexico in particular was one of the underground railroads. Like it's the first pathway to freedom.
Okay.
And there was a black Mexican president who said any enslaved person in the U.S. that gets to Mexico is free. And so you had tons of black um, African Americans, however you want to call them, at that particular juncture in history, that got to Mexico and created these communities and colonies, and they were free
Wow.
and had a variety of different experiences and all these things. History is layered, and there's lots of conversations around sharecropping and stuff. But at the end game, they were free, and I think that there was this big motivating factor. And Mexico was really calling me at that particular moment. And Tulum had been started to be a little bit of a buzz, but it wasn't. I mean, it grew into something much bigger once I got there. Like, oh, okay, it just blew up. Everybody was in Tulum, but at that time, Tulum also is a deep spiritual space. And
Mm.
I found some healers in the jungle. And the funny thing is, there was a dude, he called me up. I swear I still don't know this man's name. If you watching and you're the one that called me, text me and tell me who you are. Like, I don't remember who he was.
We're gonna
He was like,
find
sister,
him.
yeah, like I'm watching what you're doing and I like what you're doing. And I think you need to know these people. And I was like, all right. And they're like, this is the real deal though. They're in the jungle, but go to them. You're gonna like them. My brother worked with them. Don't know this man's name from Adam. I said, okay, I think I'm gonna go into this jungle. Anybody, a lot could have been set up, but I always know the world conspires with me, so I always feel safe. And I met this couple in the jungle of Tulum on the outskirts, deep in the jungle. And Tulum is full of like a lot of young hippie white kids and all the pseudo intellectual spiritual stuff. But I went into the deep part where the Mayans are, and it was overwhelmingly impactful to me.
Mm,
And it was a deep cleansing. I remember I cried from the depths of my spirit, and it was generations, and it was this cleansing that cleansed 7 generations before you and 7 generations after you.
wow.
And then I took 3 groups through that process. The Black Freedom Colony really was about trying to get people to also do some of this work. And I think that we had a lot less of that, but what it did is it set me up to really understand what I needed to do for Mwasi creative community in Morocco, what kind of rules you had to have, right? Like you gonna get this work and you gonna do
Right.
this work, and this is a prerequisite to be able to be here. and a requirement to be here, right? Because there was a lot, the Black Freedom Colony was hard, and people, three girls in particular, it was very interesting. They came in after three hurricanes, and this was a girl that had really supported a lot of my efforts, and they were frustrated. And, I think everybody was frustrated. We didn't have internet, it was structural. But for whatever reason, they focused all that energy on me. And I mean, letters and threatening to go. At that point, I was doing a TED Talk, going to TED Talk, and like they're gonna get to the press that you're a fraud and the Black Freedom Colony is a scam. And I mean, and it reminded me and it set me up for the depth of hurt and pain that we're in, and the ugliness that comes when people are in that kind of pain, and how we turn it on each other, right? And it was great because, after I got through it, because it was painful in the moment, it set me up to create better boundaries for Morocco, and to know that if I'm going to do this work, you're working with hurting people, and hurting people hurt people, right? And so figuring out how to fortify myself I don't think I was completely ready at that point, but what it did is it opened up the wound, and then I did all of the work to really fortify myself. And so Black Freedom Colony was like a learning ground, and a lot of those people have moved to Mexico since. And I think Mexico was particularly easy because it's inexpensive to get to. You're really close to home. So if you change your mind about moving abroad, you can jump right back over that border.
Right.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that time and those people and that community, and, the text messages that we still send to each other, and the birthday messages, and missing these babies that we all loved.
But one of the things I've learned about just finding gratitude in spaces is it helps with the healing, and it helps you get through whatever it is that you're going through. And I don't want to focus so much on the getting through, but really allows you to appreciate the journey. And in hindsight, now you can look back at Black Freedom Colony and some of the challenges and say, hey, you know what? This is what I learned from this. But there was also an opportunity in the midst of it to say, hey, I'm grateful because this is bringing lessons, and something greater is being birthed from this. And what was birthed from it was Spry Palace. So talk about bringing all these Black people now to the middle of the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, grateful for those lessons, grateful for that community. I'm sorry, I'm like still kind of in that Black Freedom Colony space. And yeah. So Spy Palace, whew, honey. It is, the Sahara for me, that was the first time I went to the Sahara. It was like incredibly impactful. And I was having a problem with resources and money, right? Just reconciling my relationship to abundance. And it relates back to Black Freedom Colony, because I knew that if I had put a markup, right, like there was no money being made with Black Freedom Colony, right? I actually ended up being like $5,000 in debt to this space, to my detriment, and it was a big lesson for me in understanding how to balance your love for humanity, your desire to pour into your people, and how to protect your own space to your not to your detriment, right? So that you can also prosper. And I think the financial lessons, I ended up having a girlfriend come at the very end, and I was short because I had made no money for an entire year during COVID. And she blessed me with all the resources I need to get myself out of to in that space with integrity, and to close out that money. And I say that because it leads into Spy Palace, where those lessons that I took around What do I need to get out of this space? Who do I want to be? What do healers deserve? Right? Like, so when I'm negotiating with healers, like, we do this work, and it's work. It is work, and it is, you you can't qualify it with a price tag.
Right.
But it has helped me kind of shape the space between commerce and knowing that I needed to create this community for people to be able to come. And so Spy Palace this season has really just been an endeavor to get people to the healing, and simultaneously a business venture in a really particular space, right? With desert Sahara men that don't work with women, don't communicate with women, and their own culture, right? Like, they have very separate spheres here between men and women. So it has taught me a lot of lessons, but I think all of that fortifying, that reconciling, and I say this because the Sahara, when I went to the Sahara the first time, I was out there, and I remember I prayed about this particular issue I was having with money and resources. And 2 weeks later, I generated $40,000 when I got home. And I
Wow.
mean, yeah, so there's a manifestation. I think that was kind of like a full circle lesson for me. Black Freedom Colony, and giving and pouring and depleting yourself. So the money, it was just a reflection of me giving to the point of depletion, right? And with coming over to Spy, this work has been very interesting with trying to find the balance between pouring into myself and not depleting, and to do this work for other people and provide it to, so that there isn't a lack. Right. And I mean, I think about the work that was done, and, we were able in the middle of COVID to generate significant amount of business,
Right.
and but for the purpose of giving people peace. And yeah, it was this really interesting balance for me, because people,
Yeah, but
like,
you
yeah.
I'm sorry, you also had challenges as well out there. One, you are going to you're building this your team from the ground up. And then you're also in the midst of you're working in a country. You mentioned some of the challenges that you had with working with the men, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that as well. But in this Muslim country where they're now taking orders in a sense from a woman where they're not used to doing that. And
Mhm.
so what are some of the cultural challenges that you had to deal with as well?
Yeah, so I think, I always like to preface this. Islam, for me, has always provided a space where I feel very protected, and I feel very honored. I think that there's a missing link in how people think about Islam and women, where in Islamic countries, I feel the most beautiful. I feel the most safe. And so there's that interesting dynamic, but it's different when then you come into leadership, right? You're not just a woman walking down the street where they want to take your bags. Now you're here saying, but I need you to get this work done, and this is my expectation of you, and this is what I need you to deliver on, right?
Right.
So it was different. It was different for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just a woman, right? I'm a Black woman. I'm a Black American woman. And we come with a whole nother level of authority and self-possession. That was I think it's been very interesting, and for them to accept. But what it also comes with is a certain kind of precision, and your life improves because we're in it. Black women improve your life, right? And so I think when they started to be like, oh, but we get paid. Oh, we get gifts. Oh, we eat. Oh, this shit comes on time.
Right.
Like, I think that there was a transition with my Moroccan staff, my team. And when I thought about it, at the beginning, I thought I needed all these people, right? Like, I needed, this person. And I think I did. I needed people that,
Mm-hmm.
because a community isn't just me. And that would have sucked me dry if I would have had to entertain and be a part of every single person's experience at the palace all day, every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the initial team that I had that came in, was, I mean, everyone just poured into this project, right? Like getting that space together for Power Black was a tremendous undertaking. People was in the kitchen scrubbing, I mean, soot, right? Like it was a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember y'all talked about like working up until the minute the bus pulled up.
and still it's the Sahara. So people's expectation, I think that I've learned things like I've taken a lot of the words out. Luxury, I've taken luxury out, and not that because Spy Palace isn't luxurious and
No, it's
beautiful.
luxury. It's luxurious.
It is, but it is also the Sahara, and it is
Right.
also, but it was
Yeah, because you're
fascinating
still
to
gonna
me to
have
watch.
dust and sand coming up under your door when
Oh,
it's a
oh,
sandstorm.
you are.
Like
But
they
it's
had sand. I
interesting.
thought I didn't. I thought I didn't like sand at the beach,
Uh,
but that's a different kind of. I mean, the sand is Sahara sand is different and it's
it
beautiful,
takes
but it's
over. It's a
everywhere.
whole entity. Like you don't leave your window open in a sandstorm. You will have a desert inside your room. Like
You've even
it's
talked about
fascinating.
having to come to terms with that and just settling into the fact that listen, my shell's gonna be dusty.
It's just what it is. My feet gonna be dusty.
Right.
That's been the hardest one.
Ashy
That's been the
ankles.
hardest to accept. Some dusty, rusty, crusty feet has been the hardest to accept. But you know, dealing with my team and what I think was interesting is that as Black people, you know, again, I think it's always comes back to this sense of privilege, right? This expectation that we have and these spaces that we're used to living in. And I think there was a lot of challenges for people over the course of this season for what their expectations were versus what it actually was, and the work that was necessary to do to build community. I think that everybody is at different stages to be able to really do that at the level that is required of us to build a creative community like I envision. And so, yeah, it's been a challenging time to say the least.
But one of the things I do
But
remember as well, when you
beautiful.
talk about the cultural differences, um, I remember you and I'd love for you to talk about the story when you were looking at ways to make your staff, your Moroccan staff, more comfortable. And they were like, nah, like we good, we comfortable. And it was the mattresses.
It was the mattresses. You know, when I went in, so Africa is a class thing, right? And I see people have caste, right? They have spaces in which they occupy that they've accepted. And it's interesting because people fight back when you push back at class, and they fight to stay in these systems of class too. And I think African Americans will have a very interesting task as change makers in the world to combat some of these things that we know because of our lived experience have to be challenged, right? And funnily enough, Africa is not quite ready to challenge all of their class issues. But when you think about it like that, you know, I'm dealing with these are nomads. These are descendants of people that have, you know, like even in town, like this is probably first or second generation of people that didn't live completely in the desert from tent to tent to tent. You know, like you go into town at night, they're literally sitting in the middle of the road together on a blanket in the middle of the road, like with the cars that are coming, because that's what they would be doing if they were in the Sahara, sitting together in community outside because it's hot, right? And so this
And
my
black people know
my
about being outside when it's hot.
they do
That's
like
where we
being
get it from.
outside. They do like being outside. And I remember, you know, I really wanted to build up my staff quarters. They were, to me, not a place where I would have my mama. And if I can't have my mama there, then I wouldn't want to have anybody there, right? And so I painted and I changed outdoors and I'm cleaning up bathrooms. And I'm like, okay, the rooms, there is enough mattresses at this palace that everybody can have a mattress, right? And so I'm getting the sheets and they're like, no, those are for the guests. We don't need those. And I'm like, you can have these sheets. I bought these sheets. Like there were some sheets I had brought from Ghana. I bought these sheets. You could have these sheets, right? And I was like, and everybody's gonna have a mattress. And I'm putting the mattresses down, and they sleep on these little matlas, right? They don't sleep on mattresses. And they kept resisting. And I'm like, guys, I thought at first it was just like they didn't feel like, oh, I'm good enough. No, they just didn't want it. Like it was,
Wow.
I went in and all of the mattresses that I had put in, brand new mattresses in everybody's rooms were up against the wall. And there was their little matla rolled out with their blankets and the way that they sleep. And I think that I realized that I was imposing
Mm,
my own set of expectations
right.
and on this community of people. And it was a real big lesson for me in humility and listening to what other people need and not what I want to give.
Right. And a lot of
I
times
think
as
because
leaders, we go into these spaces saying, oh, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What do I need? And, there's rare opportunities to listen to the people who are there. They're here to serve us, but it's like parenting, like we're here to teach our kids, but we learn so much from them.
yeah, it was great. I mean, I needed that bit of humility. I needed um to really be more thoughtful. And I do this work. So I'm often always combating my sense of privilege, always combating, like I'm constantly deconstructing my own ideas. But that was a really humbling moment for me and realizing that as I create this space for us, I do it within the context of other people's space and how you build a safe space for Black people in the Sahara is still amongst all these other Black people
Right.
that were there first, right? And all these stories. And so this has been a really good and beautiful moment. And even with the team, like I watched people push through. I watched people stay through when, hard stuff. And that level of dedication, I'm really appreciative of. But I know now also I would make certain decisions, different decisions. I'd be very careful. I'd be a bit more thoughtful in terms of, balance between men and women. And there's a lot of things that I would do differently, but you don't know it until you do it.
Right.
And yeah, people love to criticize, what they always say, the people that ain't doing love to tell you how to do it and they ain't never done it. But yeah, that was shade. Um, what I realized is I do,
Mm,
and getting really comfortable in that. Like I started the year with $50,
mm.
50 US dollars, given in COVID. I had lost $5,000 in Black Freedom Colony. I had no money.
And now you
And
started in fashion lines and you
I
got a
mean,
bag line. Come
we
on
rolling
now.
now,
You running the Survive Palace. Got people coming
we're
from all
rolling.
over the place.
But that
But
that takes doing it, and that takes also finding the balance for yourself between what you give and what you pour in and what you also help to build yourself and reconciling that as healers and leaders and activists, right? That everybody deserves this. And I watched a video recently of a Black woman kind of going off about somebody having the nerve for her. She was a freedom fighter, having the nerve to talk about a car she bought. And the idea that that your activism should also end up in your poverty.
mm,
It was fascinating. And I remember why she was so mad. I was like, I don't want to be that angry anymore, but I feel you.
right.
And, moving through this next phase where, I'm really considering a property. I'm
Mm.
considering a property and what that would look like, and what these spaces can look like for us is exciting, and I'm glad that I was able to go through those learning lessons and find some balance for myself.
And
Yeah,
speaking of balance, you are also a mother.
I
And
am.
you're very vocal on social media about some of the challenges that you've had to face both alone as a mother, but also with your daughter, bringing her out to the Sahara and making that challenging decision to say, look, we are moving out here. So
Yeah.
what are the I'll ask one of the major lessons I would say that you've learned, and what's one of the major gains that you've gotten from um, bringing your daughter along on this journey with you?
Yeah, Solana's a writer, so she's been traveling a long time, but I think she knew, Solana's very intuitive, so she knew this was going to hit different. Mommy was really moving. Traveling, she's with you. Oh, even 4 months. She got me for 4 months, and she's like, and I'm going back to my grandparents now. Like this was fun. Bye. But this was definitely, I think she felt the finalness of like, I'm ready to be in Africa. And I've been talking about this. This is not a new conversation, but definitely bringing her out this time and the decision to sell my home. And my baby's a Taurus. She likes stability. She liked to know that she like what we doing? What is this? Okay. She'll roll with you, she'll rock with you, but you got it within these structures for her. And so it was really challenging. And I think that my daughter has always been my ride or die, right? Like close and sweet. And this was the first time she's been angry with me. Like really like cried some tears and was really upset with me about a decision that I made for her life. And that's hard, man. That's hard to like, she turned 13 in the desert.
Ooh,
I mean,
you
it's
got a
a
whole
hard,
teenager in the
it's,
midst of all of this.
it's a hard age. And the funny thing is like 12 was so different in the Sahara. During COVID, it was like I got another year of my baby, right? 12 would have been the age where maybe she would have started some of this pushback, but I got another year of my baby like running in little dresses through the Sahara. But this year that was over. Here she was. And it was a lot of resistance. But here's what I know. That your child is not always going to like you, and you're still going to have to make some hard decisions. And I think that was really difficult for me to go through that space, and I probably will still be going through this space because we got some
Oh man,
changes coming up.
listen, my son is we constantly have preparing him about moving to Atlanta. That's up the block. So
They
I can't
It's going to be
imagine.
interesting. But what I know is our children, particularly Black children in America, they need to be prepared to be global. And I've been preparing her to be global all her life. And they also, I want my kid, I have like the deepest dreams for her to be a free Black woman, right? I feel like I have given her an example of Black womanhood that is free in this world and self-possessed. And I just simply don't think she can achieve that to the highest level possible in the United States. And I think that if I can take her out of that environment and put her in spaces where she can be more her full self and not deal with the weight of those struggles, that it's going to be better for her. And while she may not be able to see it at this particular moment, I have faith that she will. And that's where
And
we're
I
at.
see one of the things that because we decided to homeschool our kids, but part of the reason is to be able to go and stay and travel to different parts of the world and stay for the extended periods of time, so they can learn the culture and they can kind of like decide for themselves where they want to be, and what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and just let them know that you have options. And that goes back to the Black Freedom Colony and those people coming down, and it's like, yo, I have this option now. I didn't know I could do it, but I can do it. And now, like, it's almost is like you're I'm trying to think of another term, but I'm just gonna say it. It's like you're popping that cherry to say, hey, like, here it is, and
Here it
now you want a
is.
little bit more. Like you're giving them a taste, and
Mm-hmm.
and you're inspiring that desire to have more. And I think that's what is happening with what you're doing there at Spry Palace.
I'm excited to watch people come and take this journey. It's not an easy journey. It's long, right? Like it's a long journey down into the Sahara, and it is a quiet journey by yourself. As I get the language better, as I take some of the words out to get the words to really describe what it is I'm trying to do, what I see is that it gets more focused and people are understanding what this is. And Spy Palette, this is a journey of one. We're here. You got a community of people. We got healers. We got the people that will kind of wrap themselves around you, but you're gonna be real quiet with your damn self. Like this is what this is, right? And to watch people kind of struggle with that, because silence and quietness with yourself is such a luxury in the United States. It is the work, and it's work I'm really, really proud of. People need some peace, and even if it's just for a time. I'm very excited about the idea of when we start having longer spaces where people are there for 4 months instead of one, like a full season, to see what that kind of transition looks like. Hint, 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 hint,
I know.
hint.
I feel like you throwing some subtle hints, but
But yeah, it's this Mwasi creative community, and I like to call it that because it's Mwasi creative community at Spy Palace. Spy Palace is the backdrop, Mwasi creative community, this space of community that it could be anywhere, right? And I do suspect it will be, it will travel, it will be in other parts of Africa, it will move around. But this core idea of providing space, in beauty, right? Like I love beauty. I'm always try to make something beautiful, but to provide it in on the continent particular, is important, I think, because there's a recovery of self that also happens as you're doing this work with yourself of healing. But yeah, we had Gozi. She's a Black Brit, Nigerian by way of Nigeria. And I saw her do some amazing work with people, and people really connecting to these old parts of the pain and letting it go, really leaving different, really leaving free. And some children going through those sessions, and what that looked like was really powerful. And just for myself, really going through the motions of leadership and what that looks like in healing space. It's very different, what people need from you, what they expect from you, and what you need for yourself. It's been interesting and a
so
long
we are talking
journey.
about healing, and I have to ask you before we're running short on time. But so how are you healing? What is
Mm.
your self-care package? What's important for you?
So right now, I'm in a phase of healing, where I am learning to build a fortress of protection around me. I'm understanding what that really looks like, right? Like this very small, intimate community of love and support, and really praying deeply, deeply, deeply for discernment. I think that when you're a person like me, because I'm a healer in a different way. I'm gonna pull you together. I'm gonna offer you opportunity. I'm gonna give you experiences. I'm gonna pull the healers and the people that I think can help you in, right? And so it has always made me like big and open. You said I'm like a writer, so I talk about my life, and I'm very open to like everyone and everything. And I think what's happening now is that there's now like a cocooning, and because the higher you get, the deeper you get in this work, the more the less access people need to have, because the more you need that energy to keep going. Like I have to be able to absorb the impact of people. And the only way that I can do that now is if I really pull in tighter. And I remember like 3-4 years back, I lost all my friendship circle. like circle that I thought I would have been friends with forever. And it was painful, like very interesting way that I saw. I was like, oh, y'all don't even like me. Like these people don't even like these are people that I thought were my family. And I realized like the universe and God was really preparing me for the kind of isolation that also comes with this kind of work. When you are pulling people in, you also kind of, I don't know, like it's interesting. I feel like I am building community that I may never really be a deep part of. And
Mm,
I'm okay with that. Like I understand the work is different, right? Um and so yeah, so my healing right now really consists of knowing the kind of love and support that I need in a partner and allowing that in no matter what it looks like to me or anyone else and loving it, and really protecting it. It's ain't for the streets. It's
and them
just for
spa
me.
days, them spa days work too.
Oh, let me tell you
I know
something.
you
I'm a
get your
good for
spa
her
days.
mom. I'm good for her mom. But yeah, but also just like building this little world around myself and my core inner circle and being very specific about that inner circle looks like. And understanding that I won't be a part of it all. And that's all right.
All
I'm
right,
good
so
with that.
we are going to end with a little game I got. I'm gonna give you 5 words, and you just tell me whatever comes to mind. What comes up. But I'm only giving you 20 words to play with. So once you run out of words, then the game is over. So, but I'll start. So, first thing, Power Black.
What do you want me to say?
Um, give me whatever comes to mind. What do you feel? What word? One
Freedom,
word, 3 words. Power
freedom,
Black.
self-possession, creativity,
Okay. Mawasi Creative Community.
love, rebuilding, restoring, uh, peace,
Mm-hmm. Sabai Palace.
an opportunity, um, uh, an imagining, uh, fantasy, uh, yeah.
Solana.
Oh, deep, 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 deep love, and letting go,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, letting understanding deeply that these souls aren't yours.
Mm-hmm. And last word is Africa.
It's home.
Mm.
Africa is it's a reconciling of pieces of myself. It is a sanctuary. It is a lesson, a constant lesson in patience, a tremendous amount of patience. Yeah,
It's the
and
slogan.
Africa is everything. It is the world. We literally have everything here.
Mm.
And I'm back and I was supposed to be back and I'm here and it's gonna be interesting.
Awesome. So thank you so much, TaNesha,
Thank
for being a part of
you.
this. And just let the people know where to find you because again, you have this global travel company and it's not just the Sahara. Like you go all over the
No,
place. And then you
yeah.
also have the dope clothing line. I'm waiting for the men's line to come out.
Look, I just did. You have to check out Ask Jalal. I just did a men's kimono. And I was like, let me
Oh,
just do one for you. Let me see. It's silk, it's blue. And I was like, let me just see how you rock it. Let me
you
see
know,
how it
speaking of
did it.
blue, I decided to wear this blue because when I was in Morocco, it was maybe like 5 people on different days that kept coming out in this blue. And I was like, yo, I got to get some blue
That's that
before I
desert
get there.
blue.
And I forgot to get it. So when I come back, I'm going for my desert blue. And
Yes,
so
that
and
blue
then you
is
also have
power.
the line of travel bags and so much
Yeah,
going on. So
yeah.
again, let people
Skincare.
know, how can we find you?
You can follow me at T Barnes Global Lifestyle on Instagram. It's the best way. I talk a lot of shit on Facebook too, if you like that kind of thing. I ain't got no more space for friends, but you can always follow and keep up with my talk. But yeah, the website is tbarnesgloballifestyle.com as well.
And
And
thank
you
you,
can
thank
also find us at spypalace.info if you want to understand what's going on in the Sahara. If you are a retreat leader, we have 4 or 5 spots left. The weeks are booking up very quickly, but it is organized where you can also make your profit margins on that. And if you're interested in just coming, we have a lot of beautiful retreats for the next season that you can participate in. But it's all retreats for the next season. No, not a lot of individuals, but we do have 7 rooms where we want people to come and like stay for a while and do what they do, healing and yoga. I wonder who could do
well, I'll keep that in mind. I
that.
know somebody. Well, again, thank you, TaNesha, for being a
Thank
part of this.
you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Again, please feel free to like, share, comment, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification button, because we are here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and we got so many more guests lined up. Some amazing healers coming through. And feel free to join our community. You can find us at Medicine4Melanin. So at Medicine4Melanin on all social media platforms. Or if you want to skip all of that and just go straight to, cut out the middleman, go straight to Medicine4Melanin.com, sign up for our newsletter, and it'll take you to all our social media platforms as well. Thank you again, and make sure y'all
Thank
heal.
you.
Peace out, TaNesha. Thank you.
Bye.